What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
We were in Kruger National Park. We were moving to a location. It was me, cameraman, sound guy. We're walking and we see these two female lions. They just normally didn't pay any attention. This one didn't. And when she sat up, I saw two cub tails behind her. That's when it gets dicey.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Do any of you have a weapon on you?
No. This female lion sees me. It was probably 30 yards away. If I had a rifle slung, I don't even think I could have got it up in time to take a shot. That cat closed the distance within probably 15 feet.
You're right on top of her now.
And I remember it just looking at me like this. I'm thinking, holy shit, I'm about to get eaten alive by a lion. Like, this is gonna suck.
But we had started on that, getting into a little bit of the dual survival stuff, and you at least started on talking about it. But how did the opportunity even come up? Like, how did you get offered to do this and drop around the world?
So first, I had no desire to be on TV. Zero. Like, think about it. I was in a Black Ops unit, like as black as you can get. And then being on an international TV show from like it's the complete opposite sides of the spectrum. But to answer your question, I was in California doing exercise with MARSOC, and I was out in the desert, and a friend of mine was texting me, or excuse me, he was emailing me. He's like, hey, dude, check this email that's out going to the community, meaning the special operations community. And it was from this production company. It said, wanted special operations individual for a reality TV show. Didn't say the name, and it just said send resume and headshot. I think it's what it said. Yeah. I'm like, dude, whatever. I'm like, I'm not interested. He's like, hey, let's just turn our names. I'm like, dude, nah, I'm not interested. Don't want to do it. We kept like every freaking day. He kept saying, I'm like, bro, enough. So I finally said, to hell with it. I'm just going to turn my name in. So I had a bio and just some bullshit picture. Like, I didn't care. And I sent it. I'm like, done. I even CC'd him. Like, here, dude, it's done. Leave me the f alone, right?
I'm never going to do this.
Exactly. Dude, never say never. Oh, my God. Yeah. So I sent it in, and I end up going back home after this exercise. And
did you feel like you could do that role no problem, though?
Didn't even think about it. It didn't even register.
It was a fuck it, send it moment.
Yeah, it was like, send it. Yeah, I'm like, I'm done. Like, okay. I'm not joking, dude. So about maybe 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I can't remember. And I'm getting a phone call from this dude. He was like a talent rep or something from Discovery. I don't remember what his title was. And he said, hey, Mr. Teti, we got your bio and your headshot. Very interesting. But he says, don't get too excited. We have 1,800 people we're looking at. I'm like, okay, great. I literally hung up the phone on him. Like, thanks. Nice talking to you. Didn't care. 2 weeks later, I get another phone call from the guy. And he says, hey, you're in like the top 100 or something. I don't remember. It was like 100 or 200 people. And he said, can you make me a video of yourself talking? I said, no, I'm too busy. He said, just a quick, I said, sir, I don't have the time. I'm sorry. Seriously, I didn't care.
Joe, flip around the iPhone. Come on, pal.
Didn't even have an iPhone.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is like what, 2010, 2011?
Yeah, I didn't have one, man. I had some bullshit. Oh, no, I had a BlackBerry or some shit. I can't remember.
Oh, the Crackberry. Yeah, remember those days?
So I'm like, I can't do it, man, all the time. And so he's like, oh, okay. And I thought it was the end of it. I'm like, that's the end of that. Thank God. About a week later, I get a call from a woman. She was, I think, with the production company. And she said, Mr. Teti, you're down in the top 5. And we need you to come do a chemistry test with the other host of the show. I'm like, what? A what? A chemistry test? She's like, yeah. She's like, we just want to see how you guys interact. I'm like, oh.
And this is your best friend, Corey.
Yeah. So, Cody. So.
Wait, I even up his name.
Sorry.
That's okay. Too good.
So it was weird, dude. I don't know to this day why I even agreed to go, because even at that time, I still had no inclination to be on TV. I just didn't. So I said, okay, whatever. I guess it was, no, I can tell you what it was. It was just sheer curiosity at that time. I was just like, what the is this all about? So I was supposed to leave the next week to go fly, I think it was to Arizona, to meet the host of this other show. Still don't know the name of the show. Still don't know the name of the host. Nothing. They're being like ultra secretive with this shit. And so 2 days before I leave, I come down with like a massive kidney infection. Like, dude, I was sick as a dog. I had like 103 fever. I was just sick. And this kind of shows you, dude, like life, dude, just you never know what is going to happen. I was really sick. I'm like, I'm not going. Like, there's no way. And so don't ask me to this day. I don't even know why or how, but I ended up getting on the plane, flying there, and they checked me into a hotel. And it was really weird because they like sequestered everybody. Like they said, stay in your room, don't leave. If you need food, order room service, da 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 da. I'm like, okay. So the next morning, I woke up, they put me in this van and they drove me out in the middle of the desert. And I just remember a bunch of cars and there were 5 white tents set up, like kind of separated by 50 yards. And I seen some other dudes. And then they said, just go under this tent right here and wait. Just wait till we call you. Okay. About an hour or two went by and up walks this guy and he says, look, he goes, we want you to walk down this trail and you're going to see a guy standing there. He goes, just pick up a conversation with him. Just start talking. I'm like, about what? And they're like, just start talking to him. I'm like, okay. So I go walking down this trail and it kind of went up and down. When I got to the top, I looked down and I seen Cody Lundeen. And I had watched the show, Dual Survival. I'd watched it. I liked Dave Canterbury. I liked the way because Dave was on the show originally with Cody. I just liked the way Dave, he was a military guy, very knowledgeable about survival. I just liked his attitude and just the way he presented stuff. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, what happened to Dave Canterbury? Did I die or something? So, the funny thing is I walked up to Cody and the first thing I said to him was like, let me see the bottom of your feet. Because he walked around barefoot. And he's like, oh, here. And he didn't make a big deal out of it. He said, well, here. And I touched him and it was like touching a mat. Like a mat you would wipe your feet on. Like very calloused, very hard. As a matter of fact, he used to glue his cracks together with glue. Dude, it was pretty crazy. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So we just start talking, and I didn't know this at the time, but his instructions were to push my buttons and become argumentative with me. Because that's it was a yin and yang show.
They wanted the heel.
They wanted to see how I was going to react. And so he said something like, so what do you know about survival? Like, you're some military dude, but what do you know about survival? And I'm like, to be honest with you, not a whole lot. I know the basics, but not a whole lot. I said, you know what my survival is get on your freaking horse and get the hell out of there and blow your wad freaking walking 50 damn miles and get done with it. Right? I'm not going to sit out there and camp. It's not my thing. So then he said something like, something to the effect of like, you really think you can hang with me out in the woods? I'm like, yeah, I think I can. So dude, he was doing a very good job at it. Like,
are you getting like visibly pissed? Or are you
I was starting to cringe a little bit. Yeah, I was because it was so funny because later on, the executive producer for the show, Brian Nichelle, who's an amazing producer, and he's actually a friend of mine now. He's like, hey, dude, you want to see your sizzle reel? Because dude, you got to, the other thing they said is like, when you come up over and meet him, ignore all the other people. And there was like cars down there and like TVs set up where they were like watching to see what you actually look like on TV. Because Brian even told me, he's like, Joe, you never know. Just like Spec Ops guys, you don't know who's going to make it. He says, I've worked with supermodels and these people, and the camera either loves you or hates you. There's no way of telling. So they wanted to see how you actually looked on TV, right? And so, So Brian, he basically said, "You want to see your scissor reel?" And you could see I was getting torqued. Right. And
like,
it was pretty funny.
Good. This is trauma.
Yeah. And so anyway, then he said, they told me to bring a knife with me. That was the other thing, to bring a knife. So I brought this knife I had, and he said, do something like survivalish or something. I can't remember the words he said, like, do something, show me what you know. And like, so what I ended up doing was I took my knife out, I cut down a branch, cleaned it, and then I gutted my shoelaces and took out the 550 cord, but I took out the guts and I tied my knife to this pole and made like a spear.
Whoa.
And he's like, that was kind of cool, you know? And so anyway, probably spent 45 minutes together, something like that. I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Enough to piss you off.
Yeah, enough to bend me out of the frame a little bit. But anyway, and then they walked me back to my tent and basically said, "Hey, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it." And that was it. But what was funny is the executive producer for Discovery, another amazing guy, who, again, here's another mentor in my life. His name was Horowitz. He was the executive producer for the show. He told Brian, that's the guy, like 10 minutes in. He goes, don't even need to see anybody else. That's the guy right there.
I believe that.
But they didn't tell me. They just let me go home and like, hey, thanks for coming. And so I thought that was the end of it. I thought right there they'd be like, oh, hey, you're great, but you're not what we're looking for, whatever. So I go home. This is so funny. I go home and I don't know. It was like a week later, maybe. I'm driving in my car and my phone rings. And I'll never forget this, dude. My phone rings and I look down at it and it was like a 516 area code. I'm like, 516? I think that's New York. I'm like, who's calling me from New York? I don't know anybody from New York. I'm like, hello? And I hear this dude on the other end of the phone, very serious. He's like, is this Joe Teti? I'm like,
it is now.
Maybe. Maybe. And he's like, well, I need to speak to Joe Teti. I'm like, you're speaking to him. And he's like, my name is so-and-so, and I'm an attorney. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I fucking hung up the phone. I'm like, why is there an attorney calling me? This ain't because I won the lottery. Like attorneys don't call people because they're doing good shit, right?
If you were a loved one was victim of a mesothelioma, you could be entitled to financial compensation.
Exactly. So my phone rings again. And here it is again for the second time during this process where the guy even told me, if you didn't answer your phone, I was calling the next guy. Literally, he told me, he said, if you didn't answer, my orders were to call the next person immediately. And I'll get into all that. But anyway, he said, hey, Joseph, I think we got disconnected. And I'm like, yeah, okay. He goes like, look, man, he goes, didn't you just do a chemistry test with Cody Lundeen for dual survival? I said, yeah. He's like, do you want the job or not? Like literally.
That's how I said it.
Yep. And dude, every time I drive by this gas station, I think it's so funny. I pull off the road into this gas station where there was this car wash. And I was just, holy shit. Like this got real really fast. And I remember I got out of my car and I said, can you give me a second? And I remember I put him on mute and I'm like, okay, this is a life-changing decision. Like I knew the show was very popular. I knew it was an international show, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God. And again, maybe that's that thing, like looking to conquer the next mountain. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but the challenge of it, I don't know. I said, yeah, man, literally my response was, yeah, you're on. And he's like, hey, congratulations. He goes, keep your phone open. You're going to be getting some phone calls. I can't remember what this lady's name was. She was like the president of the Discovery Channel, not Discovery Communications. But I can't remember what her name was. But Mr. Zaslav was the CEO of Discovery communications. I met him once, but for like a second. But anyway, my phone rang a couple minutes later and it was her. She's like, hey, Mr. Teti, congratulations, da-da-da-da-da. You know, glad to have you on board. If anything you need, let me know. I'm like, yes, ma'am. Okay. Then this guy calls me back and he's like, hey, do you have an attorney and a CPA? And I'm like, no. He's like, you're going to need them. I'm like, oh man. It happened very, very quickly, dude. Like the power curve went like this. It wasn't this. It went straight up. So long story short, you know, they send me my contract. That's a whole nother mess. Like, advice for anybody, don't just hire an attorney that doesn't know entertainment law.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't. Cost me a lot of money.
You didn't get an agent or something?
Nope. I called a friend of mine that was an attorney, and I'm like, hey, can you just look at a contract for me? He's like, of course.
Probably called Mike Spear.
Anyway, bad decision on my point. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. And so, yeah, I ended up, I shot 41 episodes, 4 seasons.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.